So I just start. First of all, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It means a lot for us. And I'm Sree, and this is Veeanna. And we'll be presenting you the project that we've been doing for the past 12 weeks in conjunction with Qualtrics and the APSC. So a quick start. I'll just get to the point. Yeah. So firstly, we'll be talking about the 2017 APSC census and how they've identified a few key areas. And then we'll be discussing the solutions we've developed, and pretty much the rest of the presentation revolves around research philosophy and the solutions we've come up with. So firstly, every year the APSC census, they run an employee census to collect information about employee and agency level performance and efficiencies. Once this census is run, the data is collected from across various agencies in Australia, and this data is then analyzed to identify any key focus areas. Usually, various parameters are scored, and the areas which have a high number of negative responses or low scores are identified to conduct further research to understand the existence of the problem. So what exactly do you think should be done once you identify the problem? So the solution to that is the APS supplementary surveys. So once the APSC sends in reports to each agency, letting them know the specific focus areas they have to further investigate on. In that case, APSC supplementary surveys come into picture. So these are evidence-based surveys designed to understand root causes of each issue. Yeah. So in the 2017 census, the APSC identified 9 focus areas that were crucial to all agencies to focus on. And these are ranked in order of their importance, performance management being one of the most crucial areas that every agency has to focus on. And health and well-being, though it's not really important, it's one area that all agencies should actually focus on to ensure that employees' voices are heard, and if they have any grievances, everything is taken into consideration. Yeah. So in order to come up with solutions for the 9 problems that we've seen in the previous slide, we've come up with this solution process, which includes 4 steps. So firstly, it's the diagnostic reports. These reports are just like, you can actually have a look at them. We have a few here. Yeah. So they're in format of an academic paper. If you see, this is like a research paper. So before for building to be strong enough, it's important for them to have a really good foundation. Similarly, for us to come up with an effective solution to address these problems, it's very important that we actually understand the thematic areas and then do a literature review to understand what the purview of the problem exactly is. And then an intensive study is conducted across international government agencies, and then we study a lot of journal articles and journals as well to understand the problem and see what basically comes into picture when you talk about performance management or internal communication or anything. And then we drill down about each effect, like cause and effect relationship that actually comes into picture for each of the factors identified. And all this is then knit up with the APSC framework in order to understand how it's applicable in the Australian environment. Yeah. Step 2 is the factor identification. So once the research is conducted, we pick up specific factors that cause these problems and then base our survey on these factors. These are the foundational pillars of the survey, and all the, it's like a hypothesis that we'll be testing through the survey. And my colleague Veeanna, she'll show you how all these factors are actually knit into the surveys and then analyzed and scored.
Yeah, thank you, Sree.
No worries.
So with our survey construction, we use based on what we research and the factors identified. So the survey is built to look into each factors that feeds into each of the thematic areas. So with the factor identification, in our survey, it is the 3 important things that I want to keep in mind is that it has to be very easy and quick to be used. And it has to be very flexible because we understand that each agency is different. Each agency has a different need, and it has to be able to suit each agency's need. And most importantly, it has to be able to provide insights. So with the factor identified, the surveys that we have is built to show that you can look into each of the factor. Oops. So this is done through using a system that we call scoring that is automatically incorporated in the Qualtrics survey. So they are scored between 1 to 5, 1 being that it's a low problem area, so it's not a big problem, 5 being that it's a high problem area, so it should be looked into. So for example, I'm just going to show you how the system works. This is the survey for the bullying and harassment, and we can then look into the scoring of the questions. And this is very simple to use because if an agency wants to add a question or to modify a question, they can then just come in here and look at each of the scoring and just add or modify or change it up, whichever that suits their needs. So with this, what this allows us to do is that instead of looking at each question, going through hundreds of questions, trying to understand what exactly is causing the problem, you can look at each factor and see which factor is the problem area, and then drill down that factor area to look exactly what is the problem and to direct your efforts in it to solve the problem. So that's one of the things that we built into the survey. And the other thing that we wanted to keep in mind was benchmarking, because this is a supplementary survey. So we want to make sure that it can be valid. It is valid and you can compare it with your census results. And if you do run the supplementary survey a few times, you can then also compare results and see if you are improving. So we have, in the survey, we have used some of the questions from the census, and we've also put it in a way that to make sure that you can then benchmark it back to the results that you get. And also this allows in future efforts, if an agency decides to share their responses or their data with the APSC, they can then form a benchmark report. So they can be like, the average across our agency is at a certain point, and then you can see where your agency performs amongst all the agencies. So that allows a benchmarking report to be done. So with the survey, we can then provide a dashboard which is supposed to be a report template. So now the effort is, if when a APSC census results come out, the APSC will give the agency like, so this is your report and this is where you should focus your efforts on. But then afterwards, if the agency decides to run their own survey and do something and spend a month trying to collect responses, another 2 months trying to analyze all the data, and by the time the reports come out, the data might not be relevant. The time has lapsed, things might be different. So with Qualtrics, the dashboard is automatically feed in with your responses. So you can see real-time, up-to-date data. So as you collect the response, it will automatically adjust based on the responses you have. So this is one of the templates that we have. So it provides a very quick overview. So you can first look at, there's 2 main factors in this survey, which is agency culture, practice, and awareness score. Then you can see, okay, agency culture and practice obviously performs slightly worse than awareness. So then you want to look at what exactly is causing a problem in culture and practice. You can then click into the tab that looks into it. And you can see these are all the questions that fits into the factors. And this is a key driver matrix. So what that shows is, on the y-axis, it shows the correlation of each question to the score. So if it has a high correlation, it goes up, which means that it is important because it is affecting the factors. The question that looks into the area actually affects the factor a lot. And the x-axis shows the problem magnitude. So if it's further to the right, it means that it is a big problem and that it should be taken into account. And with that, it corresponds to the widget on the right, which you can then see exactly what is the percentage of people who gave a negative response, who gave a positive response, and see which problem area exactly that you have to look into. So for example, 3.5 shows that it has quite a high number of, quite a high correlation, sorry. So it means that it is quite important. And we can see that almost 83% of people gave a negative response. So perhaps management or whoever senior management would put their effort into that instead of blindly trying to figure out, do we tackle everything or do we tackle 5 of them? But then with this way, you can then clearly see that, okay, we have to deal with the first 3 most important. And then maybe you might run a pulse survey, or maybe you would see some certain changes in your next APS census result. So this provides a very good insight for agencies to look into. And another thing that the dashboard provides, is that it allows you to drill down into specific groups of people that you want to look at. So for example, if an agency is given a report saying that your agency has a problem with bullying and harassment, and it shows out very clearly between genders. So you might think, okay, so if we have a problem with people who experience bullying and harassment, who are these people that's actually being affected? What is the general demographic? You can actually drill down and click into the area that you want to look into. So for example, people who have been bullied. So we can then see it's very clear that male is actually quite a large percentage, instead of the formerly thinking that females are usually the ones that get bullied. And also we can look into what gender they are in, we can look into what age group they are in. So this allows you to be drilled down. So if you want to be like, okay, now we want to see at this area, and also we want to see at people who's in their 20s, then you can also click into it. So what this allows is that if you want to look at a specific thing, or you want to find out which group of people that's actually affecting, you can very easily click into the factor that you want to see, and the whole page will adjust to show you what exactly the responses are for that group. Another thing that we want to look into is that because some of these areas, some of these census questions are very, not necessarily a very quantitative factor analysis. A lot of things are very qualitative. It could be suggestions, it could be very, for example, bullying harassment is not one answer for all things. So it could be a very huge variety, and we want to look into that. So one of the way that we usually do it is through a open-ended questions where respondents will give a text-based answer. And with text-based answer, if you have 1,000 responses, you're not going to read through 1,000 responses. It's just a waste of time. So with Qualtrics, we can actually form what's called a word cloud that will show you what are the common words that's being used by respondents in their text-based responses. So for example, one of the words here that shows up is like seriously or differences, perhaps. Then you can look into what exactly about differences that's being a problem. And you can see who are the people that's replying. And you can click into response to look at all the results and see what groups of people correlates to the to giving this response. So this actually saves a lot of time, and it allows a more efficient and effective way of analyzing your text results. So with that said, so that's the dashboards that we have. Sorry. So by the end of the day, what we want is to make it very efficient and easy to use, so that it doesn't waste managers' time, and that it's a very simple solution to a big problem. So now I will hand it back to Sree to do the next part of the presentation.
So that was pretty much the entire overview of what the project we did was, those 4 steps that we looked at. And then now, so we're just kind of doing this activity with you guys. If any of you want to implement any of these surveys across your agencies, we can just do it free for the first 50 responses and just analyze and give you an overview of what the problem might actually be. This can just be like a test run before you do the entire survey altogether. And if you're really interested in purchasing these surveys, you can just contact Qualtrics, or we have a cloud subs panel that you can log in with the details that you'll be provided with and just purchase them from that link. But if you have any confusion like this, feel free to ask us and we'll help you out with purchasing or running the test survey as well. So were there any areas that we didn't cover that you'd like to see us discuss about? Anything else?
So some questions around
Sure.
factors and how the factors were calculated, whether that was with the questions, how many was it validated against the factor analysis, what were the
Yeah.
examples?
Yeah.
So
So Yeah, sure.
Oh, sure.
So the factors are identified through research. So we look into, when we build the survey that looks into one problem area, we then do research and be like, so these are the few factors that commonly affect this problem. Then we build our questions based on the factors. So we have questions that fits into each factor, looking at each factor. And the way that we score those questions is with each factor, the question that fits into the factors are scored. So it scores between a range of 1 to 5, 5 being a high problem area. So then the system would calculate
The system calculates it, because when you wanted to show us the scoring,
yeah,
we don't touch that because it's all attributed from the research.
yeah. So
You don't assign anything to that.
so we assign scores to each of the responses. So for example, if you ask questions like, my supervisor is effective, and then there's a 5-point scale of agree to disagree. So if the answer disagree, it's a big problem, so then it gets a score of 5. So then let's say there's 3 questions, and the sum of it will be 15, right? But then the system, we put in an equation that would put it back into between a range of 1 to 5. So it would divide by the number of questions that's in. So then it all, yeah. So then it comes out as an average score between 1 to 5. And if the average score is really high, then you know that there's a problem in that mathematical factor. Yeah.
So can I just add,
Yeah.
in terms of what the girls have done, it is this idea that if there is a problem area, there are additional questions you can ask, which and then standardised sort of questions.
And they come from you guys.
No, they've come from their research. We've had a bit of involvement and provided some feedback so that they fit our sort of context, APS context of things like agency instead of organisation. The questions make sense from an APS employee sort of perspective. That sort of, I think what you're asking about is almost like a framework and stuff underneath.
Oh, just that's actually.
Yeah.
But then I was thinking more about the validation of the questions, whether they are the right things to fit within the fact.
No, and look, I think the simple answer is we don't know.
Yeah.
This is the
trial.
This is the trial. This is sort of the project that the girls have worked on to come up what we think are good questions. I think the work that they've done on the diagnostic sort of at the beginning has been fantastic to kind of go, okay, and not being part of APS. So they've actually looked at it from a more sort of, I think, holistic perspective, and then we've tailored it a bit. But the idea is that this is something then that would be validated over time as more use it, more agencies use it, test it, give us any feedback that there might be this question needs tweaking or there's an issue here, or and also it's not set in stone. So agencies can go, you know what, I actually don't like that question, so we'll move it out, or let's just modify the words here. But that then diminishes almost from the collective benefit of having standard sort of surveys that you can then build that benchmark over time.
If I can add my vision for this a year or two down the track, I would like for APSC to have collected thousands, if not tens of thousands of responses to these questions, for them to be fed back to the agency, to APSC. You can then tell us the correct exact factors that we should be multiplying things by in order to get to the factor that is currently 1 to 5, or 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 being added. You might say it should be 1.472 for the first one and 2.279. If you can give us those factors once the benchmarks have been thoroughly calculated and vetted, we're just moving forward. But it is very much predicated on agencies not changing the questions substantially. That's something. That's something we wouldn't want to force too much control over, nor would the APSC. But if they stayed with the standard question, then you can.
Then that's the added benefit. It's the balance of what you sort of give up in exchange for what you get back. And the questionnaires have been built in a way that we can swap out agency and put like Department of Human Services or whoever it is. We've also shared this, so initially we've just shared it with the agencies who already have Qualtrics in place, because we thought in terms of getting people on board quickly, they don't have the procurement hurdle that those that without Qualtrics may have. We've also sent it to our counterparts at the various states and territory public service commissions, because I think they're also interested. They do similar sort of census to us, so they're also interested. There's been a bit of interest from them as well. Underneath all of this as well is the census questionnaire. So that's sort of automatically built into the Qualtrics project. And coming up in a week and a couple of weeks' time, I'm presenting at the Small Agency Forum. And so we'll be also mentioning about this at that point as well. So one of the challenges that we wanted to do was also work out how do we make it really easy for agencies to get on board, which is where the procurement sort of part of the APS design trumps motivation. So we wanted to make it really simple for agencies to just go, yep, I'll have one of those, thank you, and away they go.
It's the only opposite, because we've got Qualtrics, but I'm in the power to force them to do this.
Yes, your agency or
I want it. I asked if we could sign up today. I didn't tell them about it.
So to just show you what Jackie exactly explained is, in the diagnostic report that like I just handed out, you can see that we've researched across various institutions and come up with the questions. And if you see the leadership framework developed by APSC, all the factors link back to those. So when you're talking about our leaders, we talk like about achieving results and then shaping strategic thinking. Yeah, so all the factors flow back into the framework to just ensure that they're appropriate for every survey that is designed. Yeah,
and the other part, sorry, I was just going to say, the other part is in the census, it's already nearly half an hour for people to complete. We can't ask the level of detail on internal communication, on leadership, on bullying and harassment, whatever it might be, that we can then do through.
Actually, that's a great question. How long does each of these take on average?
So we have like a sample test time. Most of them shouldn't take more than, the average is about 10 to 13 minutes for each of the samples.
How many would you, I guess, how many would you say is the right number of someone's 2 or 3 or 5 or 9? You know, like, is it?
I think the way that we've sort of thought about it is, and what we've done, what we've built into the census this year was an action template. So we didn't want just people going, oh, that's nice results, thanks, forget about it. We put an action template in to identify like the top 3 areas that where agencies are doing well, where they need to improve and where they need to investigate more, and then a bit of an action plan as to how to do that. We would see that if an agency, and from presenting to the different agencies about their census results, we've been quite upfront saying to them, we don't expect them to fix all 20 issues that they might have, but focus on 2 or 3. So it might be agency X goes, you know what, we've got issues with performance management and internal communication, they're focus areas for us. We're just going to take those 2. And so I guess we just wanted to come up with a list that we thought was pretty much the key areas where there's either focus or there's issue identification, and be able to give something that it was relevant rather than something totally obscure that would serve no purpose.
So Alison, to just answer that, each of them usually they shouldn't take, I think the longest one is 15 minutes, but on an average they just take 11 to 15 minutes. And for instance, for a survey like internal communication, you can always choose the questions you want to ask them. So we've developed a database of questions, but some might not be relevant to your agency. So the time will always be adjusted. Probably you can just pick 4 or 5 questions out of this survey and just run it across your agency. So that wouldn't take quite a long time.
Actually, sorry, as a follow-up question. First question.
That's okay.
If you're running this sub-survey on your organisation, so you pick 3, and the demographics be kind of shared across so you don't have to waste your time filling in that section again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these about your questions are like, we've already cut them short. We haven't included all the questions that were actually a part of the 2017 survey. But if you want them, we can pre-fill them out and just like see, for example, some questions like, like this one, where is your workplace? If you're pretty much sure that all your employees are based out of Canberra, we can just pre-fill these kind of questions and get rid of them so that employees don't have to waste their time doing the same questions.
If I've got them doing the corporate management, leadership, and bullying,
Yeah.
Are you wanting the demographics on one
Yeah.
at the start and then all 3
Yeah,
sort of?
We can
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
If you already know that you're sending out, say that you've got 10 sections per agency you want to survey, you can create unique links for each of the 10 sections and then pre-fill that this section is actually around.
do the work you're in.
Precisely. So you can do that, which doesn't reveal the identity of the individual survey, just a general section. But it is also possible, if your agency is comfortable with it, to identify each individual that's responding, in which case you can completely pre-fill it with any kind of information.
I was just hoping that if I was an individual filled in one, it would then go across to my other sub-surveys.
That would be to identify.
I know, I was just hoping I was able to somehow. I knew the answer.
But from a generic point of view, that if you know which section you're in, these things can be pre-filled and then hidden so that it will use that
They don't even
see. So that's
Anything else?
A few questions about your skill development.
Sure.
What was the most difficult part of your internship project?
I think it was initially to just get everything, like we didn't have any fixed process of how to design the surveys and everything. So for us to was the hard part. Like initially, I think both of us would approximately spend 4 to 5 hours to just get the right kind of questions and structure them well. And then we had a couple of meetings with Jackie, and then Frank gave us continuous guidance. So we kind of figured out how to ask the questions right and to specifically frame the questions to get the information we want.
What about you, Veeanna?
For me, it was just hardest to try to understand at the start what exactly we're doing. It's just trying to be like, okay, so there's this thing, I've never written a survey before, what do I do? So it was a lot of reading, a lot of trying to understand how to use the system, how to use Qualtrics. There was a lot of technical stuff trying to figure out. So trying to familiarize myself with the technical aspects, especially when developing the dashboards, was one of the hardest part, which I spent most of my time on.
And actually, to add to that, as all these surveys are a part of APS, we had to first study about the APS and get the details right. I just can't randomly ask questions. I just studied we did the entire module for the APSC and then spent so much time understanding the different levels and the tasks that are actually going to that.
So there's something that I'd actually like to share with the group, and that is I put this up to make it easy for agencies to use these questions. I put the questions in the product. So it means that if people are Qualtrics customers, it's for us a feature flip where we switch it on and they can then say, create a new survey. Oh, I want to use the Australian Public Service survey, and they'll see all 9 of these surveys and just pick on one of them.
So it needs to be switched on.
It needs to be switched off. That's right, with Qualtrics. We've also made it easy for agencies to purchase from Qualtrics these questions and these reports by getting on the Cloud Services panel, the Australian Government DTA Cloud Services panel. When you log into it, although it's actually still being stood up right now, and you search for Qualtrics or Survey or APS, you'll find a Qualtrics service for what's called supplementary surveys. You click on that, you say you'd like to buy under the standard Australian government terms and conditions, 1 survey, 3 surveys, or all 9 surveys. And there are different price guidelines that we provide on that. That then generates a contract that you can take to your organization and say, we'd like to buy the standard Australian government terms and conditions, and that is acceptable to Qualtrics if you don't change it. So if you put that in as a purchase order, we create you an account. In your case, we add it to your existing account, and those surveys just appear. Plus, you get the additional responses that come with it, because these services come with something like 2,000, 4,000, 12,000 responses. This get added to your response.
So it's additional cost to turn this on.
There is an additional cost, but it's really to cover the responses.
So it doesn't just come out of our response.
You get additional responses to cater for that survey.
I can't just sneakily do it.
So I could show you, and actually like to show you, but I'm not going to fight with the technology. It's in our beta environment, and I've seen it. I can certainly show you in the product where you click on File New, and then there they are, beautifully all laid out. When you click on it, you create the survey. It then gives you instructions which say change the questions to your heart's content, but be careful if you make serious changes, then it's going to invalidate some of your results. Look at the factors, perhaps add in questions that might add to a particular factor that's specific to your agency. And the dashboard is also automatically created. So as soon as you've got your first responses in, maybe only 10 responses, that dashboard is there, it's interactive. You can immediately begin to see what people are saying.
So it comes with the lines.
That gets switched on automatically when you purchase the service. Now, having said all that, the discussions that we've had is that for the APSC, the survey questions and the wording of those questions was the most important. Agencies are able to get copies of the wording of those questions without any questions, because we have developed that as a conjunction with each other, ANU, the APSC and Qualtrics, but it just saves so much time having to import into Qualtrics. And of course, with Qualtrics, you get all those factors that are already pre-built, plus you get the reports that come out of it instantly. There's a lot of time saving, and in my view, well worthwhile.
And a lot of value add. Are you the supervisor? No? Oh. The girls have been awesome. Like, honestly, I think apply for the grad program at the APSC next year, please. Sorry? Or any positions, really. They have done an exceptional job, because I think, it's true. They've had to learn Qualtrics, they've had to learn the public service, they've had to learn survey design, and they've put to use fantastic skills around research, analysis. They've done an exceptional job, so we're really, really pleased.
So on that note, I have here a small gift as a token of our appreciation. Qualtrics really enjoyed doing this intern program. It was our first intern program. We're definitely going to do it again. But you both put in a lot of effort, I think well beyond what was expected. So as a token of our appreciation, please accept this small gift.
Thank you.
Yours to keep and wear proudly.
Thank you.